feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Wednesday morning. It's June 25th. And on today's show, Kyle and I are joined by Alex Rodriguez and Marc Lore, who as of today officially are the new owners of the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Minnesota Lynx. I recorded this Tuesday evening. The conversation runs about 35 minutes. I think what Alex and Marc had to say helps clarify what this past year has looked like for them and what the next year and the years to come are going to look like as well. A lot about the future of the Minnesota Timberwolves coming up next with Alex Rodriguez and Marc Lore. All right, we are now joined by Alex Rodriguez and Marc Lore, officially now the owners and controlling governors of the Minnesota Timberwolves and Minnesota Lynx. Marc and Alex, we did one of these about a year ago to help us understand what was going on with your purchase agreement of the Wolves. Things were sort of starting to unravel there. It's been a crazy year for you guys, for the Timberwolves, and you both seem like you're in a lot better moods today. If you look at it, we got Marc smiling over there. I don't think you smiled one time the whole episode last time, Marc. Let's Alex, I'll start with you. This has just been a very long process. 4 years ago, I mean, Ant was a teenager, right? When you guys signed the initial purchase agreement. How does it just feel to sort of have some resolution here?
You know, Dane, it's been an interesting year and a half, and we feel very, very happy, but even more so relieved. Because we thought we were in the right side of history. We said that on your show, and we have an incredible amount of gratitude that a decision came our way, and now we can actually, finish what we started kind of 4 years ago. And for Marc and I, we've had the opportunity to run basketball the last 4 years, and brought in Tim and extended Coach Finch, and brought in people like Michael Grady and Patrick Reese, and trying to bring the talent level across the board up, and so far so good. And then we have a lot of work to do now on the business side.
Marc, it's been a big year for you too. Obviously, everything with the Timberwolves that was going on, but your business Wonder has also really been taking off in this time. I'm curious for you specifically to what this year has looked like, as a lot was going on legally in this purchase agreement with Glenn Taylor, but also a lot has happened professionally for you in the development of Wonder. What does that look like? What has that looked like over the past year, kind of managing both? And then what does managing both look like for you going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was, like you said, a challenging year for sure on the Timberwolves Lynx side of things. I think Alex and I are both quite proud that, we're still able to keep a sense of calm, and still continue to execute with Tim on the basketball side and get back to the Western Conference Finals last year. I know our vision is to continue to invest in the team and get better over time. We have a long-term mentality. And so, the new owner syndrome is not something that we anticipate being a part of. We feel like we've been there for the last 4 years, as Alex said, and we're going to continue to invest in the team. And we think right now we've got a great squad. We've got a lot of depth, a lot of financial flexibility, a lot of young talent. We got a couple of good draft picks coming up. So we're in a really good spot, and we want to look for ways to get incrementally better without making any crazy moves. But yeah, I mean, in terms of managing both Wonder and the Timberwolves Lynx, it's something we're going to lean on Alex a lot to help. And that's why two heads are better than one here, because we both have, other day jobs. But I think Alex and I are just incredible. We've got an incredible partnership with great friends. We share a common set of values. We share in the same vision for the team on and off the court. And, we both bring a unique skill set to the table that is very complementary. So very excited about the future here.
I know that there's a lot of people tuning into this, watching on YouTube, And I just want to clear up one thing. Marc right now is in his Wonder office in New York. So if you are, as we get ready for the draft, if you're looking at the whiteboards behind Marc thinking you might see some draft intel and you're maybe another GM, you're not going to get it. That's not the Timberwolves whiteboard. That is a different business. But Marc, you brought up, and Alex, I mean, either one of you can take this wherever you want, but we've seen a lot of other pro franchises change hands in the last 4 years in the NFL or baseball. And that concept, as Marc said, of new owner syndrome comes up because now that it's your house, you know, people want to paint the walls, blow out a wall, you know, add a sunroom, but you guys aren't new owners. You've had your fingerprints over a lot of this over the last 4 years, bringing in Tim, a lot of the roster things. So what would just kind of be your message to the fans to maybe calm those nerves of now that it's yours, you have a long-term vision than rather than trying to make like, you know, short-term or immediate big changes to both the Wolves and the Lynx?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll start, Marc, and give you a second to think on that a little bit. You know, Kyle, I mean, being part of, you know, sports for over 30 years, one of the things that I've sensed, and I've seen a lot of great owners, good, bad, ugly, and everything in between, is that as an owner, whether you're a new owner or a veteran owner, it's really important to stay aggressive, but yet very, very disciplined. And what I mean by that is you have to avoid the head fake of trying to get it all right now. And, you know, thank goodness for us that we have that experience. And we've had 4 years in a weird way, like the model of an owner having like 4 years to try to get your MBA on the MBA, it's actually incredible, incredibly valuable. And even though this process was really difficult for us the last year and a half, and it was very, very challenging and frustrating, I think it's been a blessing in disguise for Marc and I, because we got a chance to dig into the business at every level, really understand what we were kind of fighting for. And as a result, Marc and I were already close, but we've become almost like brothers. And I'm really excited. So the point is here, we're long-term thinkers, and trying to stay away from decisions that are going to be best for what's best today or tomorrow is not a thing that's in our DNA. We want to make decisions that are going to be good in the 5, 10, 15-year run. And we're really excited about that. And we share that vision perfectly.
Yeah, and we're not afraid to build on what Alex said, afraid to invest either. So we went big into the luxury tax, as you know, last year with a big bill, and it brought us back to the Western Conference Finals. Like we're going to look for those opportunities to strike when we see an opportunity to win it all, and be very calculated in those decisions as we were last year. The other thing I'll just add is continuity, and one of the things that I have a lot of pride in is continuity across my startups and with my executive teams. And I know Alex has said the same thing about where he's seen success in the sporting world. Continuity is I think underappreciated sometimes. Like there's real value in building that trust among key executives like Tim and coach on the basketball side, and we'll look to bring in somebody on the business side as well and try and keep that continuity, because there's real value there. And I think it's underappreciated, undervalued. And that's one of the things that we've observed from afar where, we said we don't want to do that. We see, revolving doors in other places. And we're very committed to, keeping the folks together.
Yeah, Kyle, let me just add one more thing to that, Dane. Sorry about that. Is, when you have a continuity of, Tim running the quarterback for basketball operations, Finch, who we love, and then Anthony Edwards, who just basically turned 24, you're basically within striking distance with that threesome. Now, then you look outside of that and you look at, Dillingham, Shannon, and Clark around the corner. You have to have trust and patience, and you have to allow your players to develop. And sometimes I've seen in my past experience that ownership or front office get ahead of that, and they don't allow the player to develop. And this is where patience is really important. Look, there's no two better role models in sports than what the Pacers and OKC did. Neither of them paid the tax, but they both put a masterclass in continuity, architecting a team, and then having the patience to let it play out. And they didn't go for those head fakes. And I'm sure what you won't read about is how many opportunities they had a chance to go for a head fake and they didn't. And here's the payoff. And obviously, I'm unfortunate that Halliburton gets hurt in the way he did, that was just mind blowing and a brutal blow. But it was a great NBA Finals.
Kyle, I'm going to jump around here a little bit. I as you're talking about the roster, Alex and Mark, I think what has just evolved in your 4 years, again, like I joked at the beginning, Ant was a teenager when you guys took over. He is on, if not already great, on the precipice of greatness, and really somebody to believe in. And a critical element of him getting to where he can go is the people that he has around him. And we mentioned Conley, we mentioned Finch and the relationship that those two have. But as I think about the future of the Minnesota Timberwolves and Anthony Edwards, I think about you guys and the not burden, but sort of responsibility to shepherd in this era of Anthony Edwards and what he's going to be. I mean, Alex, he's 23 years old, right? There's a ways to go here with this whole thing. So what, Mark, when I say that, like the responsibility of kind of carrying Ant to, or guiding Ant to where he's going to go, what do you put on yourself in that responsibility?
Yeah, I think like you said, I mean, we're stewards of these franchises, and we have a responsibility to the fans, to the players, to the community. We feel that weight of that responsibility, and we're fans just like everyone else. We want to win. We're not thinking about this as a business venture. We're thinking about how to build long-term franchise value and win championships, right? And I think we all agree that Ant is an incredibly special player, and he's, could argue, not even into his prime yet. And so we've got some time, but it is not a long time, if we're really going to step up and go all the way. So we think about these things. We think about what is the best way to get there without, being a sort of head fake, as Alex said, a one and done, like go for it and it's either boom or bust. But how do we get incrementally better? We think we've got a great core, and we do. I'm talking to Tim, see ways to get better. And that's what we'll try and do without sacrificing the future.
I jump in on that, Alex. Curious I mean, that was you, right? 23 years old, the future in front of you. And I'm sure to some extent you experienced that, of things that you needed, that you did get from coaches, front office, ownership, and probably, I don't know, things you might not have got. What role does ownership play in raising a superstar player?
Yeah, Dan, is a great observation. And, Kyle, you always mention how you geek out about the business side, and Dane geeks out about all of it. But, for me, it starts at the top, Dane. It always does. And there's no way around it. Leadership starts at the top. And for me, it was so important and vital to have people like Edgar Martinez, Ken Griffey Jr., Jay Buhner, Jamie Moyer, Stanley Javier. I mean, these are people that had such a big impact in my career, but not just because they were great players, but as the way they behaved, the way they prepared, the way they got to the stadium early, the way they treated bat boys and executives, and they treated bat boys like CEOs and CEOs like bat boys. And it was really a lot to learn. And just the proximity to greatness and mentorship is something that I think is undervalued. So one of the things that Marc, myself, and Tim really talked about is, how do we bring core people that could be great role models for Anthony Edwards when he was a teenager or 20? And we landed with Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley. And since those gentlemen entered our clubhouse, we went from being a pedestrian team to a professional team. And they did it through their work ethic, the way they treated people in the building at Target, the way they set an example and led with very little words, but a lot of action. And I think when you think about it, Dane, if we do something really special here in the next 3 or 4 years, I think we're going to look back at monumental moments like Tim Conley, Rudy, Mike Conley. I mean, we could not be happier to have Tim as well, but Rudy and Mike as role models here. And you've seen it, pay off pretty good so far.
I do geek out over the business side of things. and over the last 4 years, getting to know Marc a little bit. Marc, you've kind of introduced me and a lot of people to the VCP model, vision capital people. And over the last year, it's been literally proven essentially in court that the capital is not a problem. And you guys have that and you're ready to take this thing to the next level. You kind of talked about your vision, but on like the people side and maybe the business side specifically, we've seen in the last week or so some transition and some turnover on that side. I'll start with Alex. Alex, is finding the right people. You've clearly went big game hunting for like a Tim Conley. You have a good coach. You have a superstar player on the basketball side, but on the business side, is trying to kind of rebuild or strengthen that business side of the organization a main priority for you and Marc this summer?
Yeah, this is where I've learned so much from Marc. I mean, Marc is, he had tens and tens of thousands of people working for him when he was CEO of e-commerce at Walmart. And he took that business from 8 billion of e-commerce, who was non-competitive to Amazon, by the way. And in 4 years, he took them from 8 to over $50 billion. And today that $50 billion with the team he still put in place is well over 100 billion, right? And so if I'm a Timberwolves fan, I would be so geeked out and excited that I have one of the world's greatest entrepreneurs, e-commerce, that's going to help run this franchise and be a steward for the next, 3, 4, 5 decades, hopefully, until our daughters take over one day when we're too old to operate anything. But I think one thing that Marc and I are completely crystal clear on is you have to bring in 10s or A pluses. And the difference between a 10 and a 9 and an 8 and a 7 is so big. You can see it in sports. You can see the difference between Anthony Edwards, easy in sport, or Shaquille O'Neal versus like me. That's an easy one, right? He's great. I'm not. But in business, it's tricky. And Marc, I'll let you talk because this is your expertise right here.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it, Alex. I mean, huge difference between even a 10 and a 9 or a 9 and an 8. Massive. It's like the Richter scale. It's exponential, right? Like I think a 6 earthquake is twice as powerful as a 5. It's that kind of thing, right? And I think you saw what we've been able to do on the basketball side, and we're going to do the same thing on the business side. And it's not only about getting an A plus or a 10 on the business side, but it's making sure that person that we bring in shares the same set of values and the same entrepreneurial spirit that we do. So we want to build something great. We want to be one of the most admired sports teams in all sports, on and off the court. And we have big dreams of what we want to do with the new arena. We're going to certainly be, innovating in a way that maybe some other teams haven't in the past. And we've got some big ideas, and it's too early to talk about them now, but we're definitely going to be trying new things on the business side, on the fan experience side, that should be fun for fans. We look forward to that.
Today's show is brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company. The NBA draft is tonight, June 25th at 7 p.m. and Falling Knife is hosting a draft night party from 6 to 10 p.m. The party starts with a live podcast from the Crunch Wears No Pants crew that begins at 6. If you love the draft, or even if you're just wanting to get together and watch with a group of Wolves fans, Falling Knife is your spot on Wednesday night. The draft will be on the projection screens there, playing through the speakers. Again, the draft starts at 7, but the party will begin at 6. It's draft night. It's a Wednesday, so head to Falling Knife, take in the draft, and take in the Crunch Wears No Pants pod before the draft begins. Again, that is tonight, June 25th, from 6 to 10 p.m. at Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks, and even though the NBA season is over, there is still plenty of ways to put together a lineup over at Prize Picks. WNBA, MLB, soccer, tennis, golf. And I was just looking, they even have the hot dog eating contest on there for 4th of July. All you need to do is put 2 or more picks in your lineup to win at Prize Picks. And you always want to keep your eye on the promotions tab over there at Prize Picks as well. They often have free squares promoted. They had a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander free square for Game 7 of the finals. On Tuesday night, they had a Caitlin Clark free square for the Indiana-Seattle game. And then also every Friday is Flex Friday, where you can make a protected play lineup for up to $35, where your lineup is protected if your picks don't hit. And I think the best promotion that they have is their new user bonus. All you have to do is put in promo code Dane when you sign up, and you will receive $50 in lineups when you make your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app. Use promo code Dane when you create your account. Mark, from a business standpoint of just the NBA right now, it is getting to the point of you just look at how much all teams are spending, and there's tons of teams in the luxury tax, even more than there was, 10 years ago, whatever. And to me, where I go in my head then is, okay, so you guys paid $91 million or whatever in luxury tax this year on top of $200 million in player salaries. And like we just talked about, Anthony Edwards is 23 years old and he's coming. So that would signal to me that, there's going to be a need to keep putting a group around him to spend. And I would imagine related to the business side part of this, and Minnesota isn't a small market, but it is a market that you guys are going to need to maximize the business side of things so as to create revenue, so as to be a team that, and an organization that can not necessarily afford, but more functionally run a business that has, a revenue line that is allowing you to stay, to stay competitive from a financial standpoint in that. So am I correct in connecting that dot that it's not just about, and the fan experience and all this stuff, I'm sure it's going to be great. And I'm excited to hear about it when you are able to tell us about it. But part of making this long-term vision work for you is about having the business side be functioning at a high level, as it is probably for the other 29 teams as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely correct. The more revenue we bring in, the more we could invest. But we're not going to wait for the revenue to make the investments we need to make. If the team franchise value is growing at 10% a year off $4 billion, that's $400 million a year in increase in franchise value. If we have to invest a big chunk of that to stay competitive, we'll do it. That's how we think about it. And of course, even better if we can increase the revenues to cover the luxury tax, and we'll certainly find the right person, get them in place, and there's lots of opportunities on merchandising side, ticketing side, on the sponsorship side, but we're not going to wait for the revenue to make those investments.
Yeah, and Dane, I will say this to add to what Mark said. It's a different world today in the NBA and really in sports. When you think about, if you think that just because you're in the first apron or second apron is going to guarantee you a championship or even going deep into the playoffs, the numbers have shown you that's simply not true.
Right.
Also, there's been a paradigm shift here in Minnesota, and that shift has been that now we're getting calls almost daily or every other day of people wanting the talent that we have in our pool, which is awesome. I mean, it's a bummer on one end, but like the fact that John Wallace is going somewhere to be a big time executive, while we're sad, we're incredibly proud that that's one of ours, right? And John will be family, forever, because he did a phenomenal job here, and he's just an incredible human being. He's going to be an executive for a long time and a very successful one at that. And the other part is, like, we have other players from other teams that now want to come play. A lot of it because of Ant, the culture we're creating, and back-to-back Final Fours. And then more importantly, players that play for us are not running out the door to head out to the airport to want to go somewhere warm or something. They want to actually stay here. So as we keep building and investing on people and the culture, the more people are going to want to stay here. And there's a lot of choices, but it's our job to make it really attractive here in Minnesota so we can keep people and attract free agents.
I want to go back to something Dane said about Minnesota being like a small market, like kind of in the sports world, because Mark and Alex, you've both made major names for yourselves out in New York, a massive, massive market on all different levels, not just sports, but business. But over these 4 years, every time I'm back in Minnesota, I see you guys. What have you learned about just like the state of Minnesota, the cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and just, I think more importantly, just the people? Like, what have your interactions been over these last 4 years that kind of get you excited about now owning one of the teams in the city and the state and what you can do for this fan base?
You're talking about Win Cities?
Yeah.
Okay, we got it. No, I mean, Mark, I don't want to speak for you, but look, I've been really overwhelmed by the support that we have received. I think at the first, to be quite honest, Dane and Kyle, there was some apprehension about who are these guys coming from New York, and are they going to move our team? And you heard all the chatter, and obviously we had to prove ourselves. And I think over the last 4 years, we've we've humanized ourselves enough where I think they know that we're real people, that we really care, that we're going to be stewards of this franchise. And, you know, especially after we had our last podcast, you know, that was a very difficult time. But since that moment on, we've seen an incredible shift in the favor of Marc and I from a support. They've leaned into us. And quite honestly, that was a bit of a surprise because we're not necessarily born and raised here or anything like that. But what I've been most impressed, Kyle, is like how much fans love their sports, how much they love the Timberwolves and the Lynx, the way they've shown up in a big way. Look, I think they had one sellout in 5 years. We have, I think, close to 90 consecutive sellouts. If you put a product on the field that they trust, an organization that they like and respect, and a team that they can actually connect with, they show up in big, big ways. And not only that, they're passionate, but they're also very smart basketball people. And that's something that I kind of learned in New York, of having fans that are basketball savvy. They know when to cheer. They know when to give it to us a little bit. They know when a guy like Adante or Nas falls on the floor, you get a standing ovation. I mean, the highlight for me was seeing a kid like Shannon. I spoke to him yesterday at the practice facility. By the way, he's made 18,000 threes on 25,000 tries. The kid's just world class, but I regress. I digress here. Is when he got a standing ovation anytime he came into the game as a rookie. But for the fans who recognize that and be that in tune was pretty awesome.
What's it been like for you, Marc? I mean, it's been 4 years. Like
Yeah,
Kyle said, it's like you don't feel like a New Yorker to me because I see you in that little back hallway by your guys' little special room all the time. I mean, one of the
things that jumped out at me, and I love, because then this is like a value that me and Alex share, but is how much Minnesota appreciates like the gritty player that puts in the work. You know, I remember early on when Pat Bev was here and how beloved he was, because, you know, he wanted to win, and he was gritty, and he put the time in, and you know what I mean? That kind of player, I think, is representative of the sort of like culture on the court that you know, made me smile early on, you know, and we continue to bring in players with that similar level of grit, and the fans really appreciate it. So I love that. I love that, you know, it was somewhat of an underdog story when we bought the team. It was, I think, one time in the playoffs in the last 18 years. And, you know, Alex and I love underdogs. We're underdogs. You know, we started off with very little, and we've always appreciated the underdogs. So there's a little bit of that. I think I'm also, you know, proud of you know, this sort of how we've been supported over the last year and a half, how kind people are. People are very kind in Minnesota and in Minneapolis, and seem very like genuine people. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and Dane, let me just add to that real quick, because in many ways, you know, Marc reminds me is we're underdogs, and our fan bases, they're underdogs, because it's not like, you know, there's been an incredible amount of winning here the last 30 years. And even when it comes to ownership and us getting, you know, the great news today that we've been approved by the NBA governors. When you think about Alabama football and Nick Saban shows up to your house, we're not the 4-star quarterback and wide receiver, right? We're truly the walk-ons on the team. We're like the 74th and 75th person on the team when it comes to like owners, which we like. And, you know, we got in this. It's funny, was people always ask us about like early on, not so much anymore, because I think we've been very clear about our desire to never move the team from Minnesota, is that we resonate with the fan base. And we got on this. The only reason you would move a team is simply for financial gains. And that is the exact definition of a mercenary. And Marc and I, we share this in values. We're missionaries, and we like to hire missionaries. And the mission here is to bring a lot of joy, bring this community together, give back to the community, and bring a world championship. We didn't get on this for the money. We didn't do this for to be doormats to the 29 other teams. We're here to win, and we're going to stand up for ourselves, just like we have the last year and a half. We're going to fight for this community and for our fan base.
Alex, just because you said this, I want to kind of throw it back to you here, but you talk about like keeping it here, and that was always a concern early on, but I think you guys have both done a really good job of kind of squashing those concerns, but keeping the Timberwolves and the Lynx in Minnesota probably translates to, as Marc talked about earlier, a new stadium. There's a lot of details that you can get into this summer and stuff, but just overall, is that one of the priorities or one of the things that you think about now that you have the keys to the house, is maybe getting a new stadium for both these teams?
Well, I think our fan base deserves it. When you think about Target is the second oldest arena, only second to MSG in New York. And they've done an incredible amount of work. There's only one MSG, right? But 20 years ago, Kyle, I remember, by the way, Target across the street is probably my favorite new park that has been built. It's phenomenal to play in. Okay. And it's beautiful. And it has the backdrop of downtown. And when you look at the dugout and the clubhouse and the video rooms and the bathrooms, it is literally tailor-made. So Marc and I's vision is to create that type of space. It's really important, but it's also a necessity to keep up with the Joneses. Yeah. It's not a vanity. I mean, the resources that we're going to, and by the way, the real stakeholders of this franchise is truly our fan base and our corporate partners. And we're going to lean on them as partners to be able to bring more revenue. So then Marc and I can pour that revenue right back into the team and to, field out what is our goal to bring a title here.
How is this going to work for you guys from like a decision-making standpoint? I know there needs to be one person as the governor. I think we talked about rotating that. How is that going to look from just how you two, whatever, maybe it doesn't matter that much of who's the governor, but how does that process work between the two of you making decisions like in conjunction?
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter who the governor is. Like, that's just something on a piece of paper. I think Alex and I are running this. We're co-chairman, co-founders, partners and friends, and just making all the key decisions together. I think we get to better decisions when we're both discussing, especially the critical ones. I don't think there's a time yet where, both of us together didn't get to a better answer than one of us alone. And that's because we bring different skills and different experiences to the table. But again, that wouldn't work if we didn't have a shared sense of purpose and values. And that's why we make such great partners. And so we're going to make all the critical decisions together. And I think, in this case, you get two heads is better than one.
I mean, on my last question on my end is probably my most important, but if you listen to this podcast, you know that Dane is very smart about basketball, and I try to mix it up with the vibes a little bit. And the last time we had you two on, the vibes were just not good, right? There was a lot of frowny faces, a lot of upset moods, but to 4 years or these last 15 months and all the stuff you've been through to see the NBA tweet it out and say that it is officially Marc Lore and Alex Rodriguez, just what would your message be to the fans, or just like, what is your mood right now as you embrace kind of this new chapter, and as the press release says, like this new opportunity and challenge? Just corporate speak aside, like, how are we feeling? How are the vibes right now for Marc Lore and Alex Rodriguez?
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, I think we've spoken like 3 or 4 times today, waiting for a decision. I mean, there was so much noise if we're going to get approved or not. And sometimes, you start believing that a little bit. And it wasn't until we got an email officially from the NBA and we got on a call with one of the executives at the NBA, said, okay, we got the votes, you guys are in. And Marc and I were just sitting there in disbelief. Like, it was silent for like 30 seconds. We didn't know what to say. I'm like, Marc, are you there? I'm like, yeah, how do you feel? We don't know. But from the fan base, first of all, we want to say thank you. We feel an incredible amount of gratitude for their patience. And you guys talked about it in your show. Nobody wants to hear about, nonsense with ownership and all of this. We want to talk about basketball and what's the agenda on the court and what's next for both teams, the Lynx and the Timberwolves. But I think we're really, really excited to lean into them. We're both obsessed with customer service. How do we make the Target experience better for them? How do we create better spaces in the arena onto the new buildings build? How do we think about meeting our fan base where they are, whether it's through social or TV or platform that maybe we create in the future? And thank you for your patience. Thank you for your support. And, we're going to put all our energy and our effort and our might together to bring some really special memories for this community. And we also want to make sure that we give back to the community. And the last thing I will say is, Marc and I will be asking questions in different formats. And I'm going to ask you two, on what are things that we can do better, and and be honest with us. And then it's our job to take those and put the ego aside and make sure that we go to work on these things that's important to the fan base.
I'll put together a list.
I was thinking, Alex, you're gonna have to use some of your connections. There's a former Timberwolves player that was pretty good, and his jersey is not in the rafters yet. So if you and Mark could get to work on that, that seems like high on my priority list.
Mark, you want to wrap us up? Just how are you feeling about all this?
Yeah, I mean, we're feeling great. So thankful, really grateful for this opportunity, and we're not going to let the fans down. We're going to hold ourselves accountable, and we're going to hold ourselves to a really high bar, as we should, on the court and off the court. And we've got a lot of motivation here to do right by the community, the fans, and the players. And we look forward to getting started.
Congratulations. I mean,
yeah,
we've talked a lot in between, these 4 years, and I know that there has been a lot of unseen hours that both of you and your teams have put into this, and I think the fan base is going to see and feel that in the coming years of where this thing can go. I think it's time for a change, and I'm excited to see what you guys are able to put in action here. Thank you very much for coming on, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Well, maybe we'll see you out at Summer League. Is that what's next?
Yeah, we'll be there.
Yep, we'll be there.
All right. I appreciate you guys doing it. Until we got the draft tomorrow, we'll do another episode. Then. Until then, he's Mark, he's Alex, he's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever